So excited. Okay, shall we roll?
What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about intention and making your space.
Making a space with intention.
Setting up your workshop, creating your workshop space with intention. I'd like to talk about your workshop, our workshop here, how it's sort of come to be, because it's not just, here it is, and let's go, and it just functions.
Yeah.
It's been, for me, much like everything with shedding, it's been an experiment and a trial and error. Can space affect how we feel? And I think the answer is yes. And I'm really interested to pull apart what aspects of space affect how we feel.
It would make sense to start with you and how you feel in this space and why you made it the space that it is. Where did you start? Like, what was it you knew? Every time I came, something would be different, or you'd talk about moving things around, or particularly the sound, noise that was created, and how you'd go about changing that.
I guess with the workshop, I came from the context of the old workshop and setting up baby shedding on the baby veranda, which was so delightful. And it felt like it had so many spaces within spaces. It felt like there were opportunities for people to gather and grow as a collective, and also intimate spaces for people to drop away. I felt that there was a lot of natural light. There was a lot of access to nature and the bushes and the greenery, almost like the plants were kind of creeping over and into the space, and the vines were trying to come across the shelves.
Well, it was a veranda.
It was a veranda. So it was a delight, but it was also a challenge, because every time I'd have a workshop on, I'd look at the weather forecast and go, no, I'm going to need to completely change the space because of the weather. And this space is very inside. It's a very inside-y space. And coming from that old space, there were things that I didn't really need to think about in terms of noise, because it was just an open air space. Ventilation, same thing. So coming to this space, I had a bit of a ride with this space.
You did.
Where I first came to this space and thought, I didn't know it yet. It felt very unfamiliar.
It was waiting for you to fill it, to change it.
For us all to come and change it.
Yeah.
And the acoustics was the main thing that I thought, this is awful. And had a few people who were perhaps more aware of their emotions and their nervous system and their senses say, it's really noisy. And so then came this mission to put up all of this acoustic baffling, which has been a delight in many ways, because it's filled the space with acoustic baffling, but it's also filled the space with colour. Yeah. And it kind of feels quite festive, really.
And each one of those yoga mats has had somebody lie on them.
Which gets me thinking about, everything that's in this space, because by the nature of running a workshop that uses recycled materials, everything has had a story before it's come here, and I feel like it carries that. So I think that there are a few things that I'm looking at in terms of creating space. The first is around feelings in terms of the senses. The light, the temperature, the sound, the smells, how things feel on our skin, if you've got an airflow, all of those senses, the physical senses. And then I think about the emotional senses. So I think about creating a space of belonging. And I think that familiarity, when people come in and they go, that was mine, or this is, they feel a sense of familiarity.
Because they help build things that are sitting here?
Yeah, because some of the things have come from them, and because the things have been built by them together. So it feels a little bit homey to them. It feels like theirs as well. I haven't just set up this space for them. So I think about the emotional senses and the nervous system, and how our, sure, this is a space. What's the function of this space? Okay, we're going to be teaching in this space. We've spoken about with teaching, our intent is for people to feel calm and be invited into that place of mindfulness and focus. And it's really incredible to think how the space can affect that.
Yeah.
I want to reflect on what it felt like for me coming into your space. So I think about when I came to your workshop the other day to pick something up, and there was a circle of chairs. There was no one there. You were in the house, and I was just coming to grab something, and I went to grab it, and I saw this circle of chairs there, and I just thought, like I know what's coming. And I imagine the participants rocking up to the workshop and just going, oh, we're gonna sit. And I've noticed things like that when I've come to your place and there's a glass of water or a jug, or you come here and you put some flowers on the table. It's like there's so much thought to these things that aren't even about the workshop, seemingly.
So I've thought about those people before they even came, before they even sat on the chairs. I've been thinking about them.
Yeah.
So I might have looked at their name and wondered their age group from the name. Bethany. Oh, I wonder if that's a young person or an older person.
Yeah.
Where they lived, what sort of climate they used to. Are they going to find it freezing here? Or are they going to find it really hot? So I've already thought about them before they even sit on those chairs.
I experienced your workshop and it was different. So what I mean by different is before coming to your workshop, I'm working on building sites.
Yes.
You get on the building site, you unload your stuff, you put it there and you're using it. And over the course of the day, it gets pretty messy and then you pack it up and go. And I remember on building sites wanting to create order, wanting to create like, this is where we'll have our lunch. Yeah. This is where we'll put the tools. This is where we'll set up the drops or house the light. These things that I felt like there wasn't time to think about because of the rush of the building site.
Yeah.
The beauty of a workshop as opposed to a building site is that you don't have to, pack everything that it's all gone at the end of the day and then it gets set up again. And I remember coming to your workshop and just feeling like I knew where I could like settle in. And I knew where I could have a glass of water and go to the toilet. And, since 11 years of us hanging out, there are the same quotes on your toilet door that I sit and read, almost like a little mantra. And I know there's that familiarity. Yes. There are things that are the same and that are familiar. And then reading your manuscript, I thought, all that stuff's done with great intention. Yeah. It wasn't just a coincidence that, Pat's place is nice and I feel really comfy. It's set out in your manuscript. Think about all of these things.
Quite deliberate. I wanted people to feel really welcome as soon as they hit the workshop threshold. And of course, that came out of me maybe not feeling welcome in places, from the schoolyard, first day at school, to right through my life. There was, when I was welcomed into someone's home and I clearly been thought about and they had anticipated me coming even, it was a luxurious feeling. It felt wonderful, and I wanted everyone to have that.
So it's that same thing I think we spoke about last time, which is from a place of struggle, there's something that we take that we want to offer to others that maybe we didn't receive for ourselves.
Yeah, I didn't want them to be wondering and thinking about all that while I'm talking about something else. Yeah. I wanted them to go, I can sit down, I know where the bathroom is, I know that I'm going to get my coffee at this time.
Yeah.
And all those things are taken care of.
Yeah, and then they can be fully present.
They can be. That's my goal. I want them to listen and be focused. And that's always my intention in the workshop, other than making them feel welcome. And that I love what you said about the nervous system, just checking the nervous system. Okay, I can relax here. Everything's taken care of and I feel safe and I feel welcomed.
Yeah. And also I think there's something in there we didn't just set this space up and it was all good to go.
No.
It's kind of like making a recipe, and then you're like, if I put in a bit more salt or a bit more cumin. And so there's this thing that I just had to kind of open the space, even though I thought it's not ready yet, and get people in and watch how people move, or watch where people would sit and pause and converse, or if they'd want to be in one space or another. And if they use a tool, how much attention do they pay to where they took the tool from and where they're putting it back. So things like this tool wall, when you see a shape around a tool, you don't have to have somebody who understands the name of that tool to put it back. So I thought, I'm trying to create things that are really inclusive, that when you're standing in one place in the workshop, you can see everything and go, I need there it is, and go and get it.
Very supportive.
And then you can stay in that state of flow that we're trying to welcome people to step into and find through that slowness, mindfulness, calm. With our workshops, we'll have a check-in at the start of the workshop. So people, and it usually comes after I've done a little bit of a intro to the space. Well-being, inclusivity, vulnerability, these are our values. Telling a little bit of a story of my own struggles, and they're getting to see, this person's vulnerable, maybe I'll be a bit vulnerable. So when they get to the check-in, there's often a pretty reasonable level of vulnerability where people will say, this is how I feel. And they have an opportunity to express that. But then through the workshop, I know for myself what I'm doing is I'm not just giving information to people. This is woodwork, this is how this is why this is what's happening, here are skills. But I feel like there's this constant watching how they move, watching what they're doing, how they flow.
Whether they're comfortable, whether they're looking lost, whether they're looking excited, whether they've got the tool upside down. You are watching,
So how do we teach that to people?
I just think it's got to be modelled, really. We model it, we keep upbeat with our, with what we keep excited about what we're teaching. And the thing is too, what you do is that you upskill, the upskill. So you will, it will evolve, as things need tweaking, it might get changed next time. So I might change my way of teaching just by what that student said, or the way they engaged or didn't engage. I'll think, I'll tweak that next time and try something different. And they don't notice, but I do. So I'm entertained as well. And I'm earnest with my desire that they get it.
People that ask about your workshop and how in such a short amount of time, how will I get all this skill? And I say to them, imagine you've run a workshop for 28 years and you've had 28 years of tweaking it. I've been tweaking upskill for 5 years and I think, man, the amount of stuff, it's almost about cutting stuff out to bring the focus really to this little diamond, this little nugget of a thing.
It feels like somebody's thought about it really well and that they like it. Somebody else really who set this up or who are in this space really like it. There's no carelessness here. There's no, I'll just chuck that in the corner and wash those paintbrushes later. There's none of that. And it doesn't have to be spick and span. It's not about that. It's just thought about and thought well about. And that makes me feel safe. I feel like I'm held. I feel like I'm held when I'm going to be looked after because I can see that it's orderly here.
I feel a little bit teary when I hear you saying about that, because I think about when I first got in this space and I thought, I hate this space. which was a very extreme emotion.
But it was nothing.
It was metal walls and a concrete floor.
Yeah,
and it was the antithesis of what I wanted to create with shedding. I know that shedding's this thing that we talk about, shed your fears, you know, that verb of shedding, but there was also this other verb of shedding, which was doing shed-like things anywhere.
So it took you a while. What was there anything that clicked?
Yes.
Like, in this spot? What happened?
I fell in love.
Oh.
I fell in love
Why?
with shedding.
And
because the awful, awful acoustics that were not okay for power tools were great for music.
Oh.
And so I just decided, and I want to speak to this because I feel like if people are trying to set up their own thing, they might have this moment where they're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. And I'd felt so guilty to not do something because I thought, we've got the space. We've got to get going. We've got to save the world. And I just came in one day. I said, I'm just going to come in for a couple of hours and just feel it out. And I played a beautiful song on the guitar, and the acoustics and the way the sound bounced and reflected back to me, I just thought, this space is amazing. And so it just something changed in my intent, in my experience of it. And it's like I became friends with the shed.
Yes.
And I just thought, hey, shedding, hey, shed. Like, let's see what we can do here. Yes. And then after that, it was, here we've got 60 yoga mats to donate. And then as we're hanging them up, one of our Repair Cafe volunteers said, I'm an acoustic engineer, and was telling us how to hang them, and then said, I've got these acoustic panels. And then we got the framing because the panels were too droopy, and then the foam was falling off, and we got the stretchy fabric, and it was just like, help, help, help. Everyone helps. Great, great, great. And then the scaffold from Pete and Deb.
This space wasn't perfect. And I think for anyone to think that a space has to be perfect to start something is not going to work. Yeah. So you took this space. It was not perfect. It was everything that you didn't want, and yet you made friends with it and you allowed it to come into your heart so that you could start to build from the inside out and not the outside in. Yeah. So that thing that we all try and do, which is we try and wait for the perfect moment or wait for the perfect space, and you landed here and went, this isn't the perfect space. So just sitting with it with intention can change the way we feel about a space. Yeah. Which is what you did. Yeah. And then I think as a collective, we've transformed this space, and I notice then what people say when they come into it, or even before they come into it, they see all of the artwork outside on the wall, and they see the gardens, and they, wow, this space looks like it's been given a lot of love. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I would like to be a part of a space that's been given a lot of love. Everywhere. Think about how people have made what is here as a collective. We did it at the old space too. We started to get people, once they had learnt tools, once they'd done upskill, or once they'd done the 4-day power tool workshop, they would come back, and sometimes people like to make stuff for themselves, but sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming. And so to come and make stuff for the space from recycled materials and I've been saying this more and more to people when they say, what's shedding about? I get asked that question a lot. And my answer often changes relative to who I'm talking about. Sure. And it's just like, make mistakes, make lots and lots and lots of mistakes. Like, try and drill the hole too deep. Does the screw still go in? If the timber's 2 mil short, how can you change that or patch it up? Or it creates this, like, we can get so inventive when we make mistakes. Yeah. And that happens in Space Makers? That happens in Space Makers. And people feel this freedom, I think, to play. Yeah. It is a luxury, though, that we give them the time. That's not how things are set up in the world. Everything is rush, 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 and about money. They assume that you will know all of these things. And I'm like, but were you taught that? Were you taught? You're setting people up for failure. It's not fun. It's sink or swim. Just go and have a go. Just, you'll get it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You'll go home crying to your pillow at night, but you'll get it in the end. That's old school. That's gone.
What doesn't break us makes us stronger.
Yeah. It's not necessary. It's not necessary.
At the very start of something, just be slow. You know, I think about the start of this shed and being like, I'm just going to come and I'm just going to feel it out
Slow is good.
for a bit.
But in the long run, I think what happens if you teach people to do that, that will be much more cost effective in the end, because it goes right in. It goes right in, and they're not second guessing and going, oh, what did I learn this morning about wood, or what was that? You've given them the time to become a part of them.
Yeah.
So
this was the concept I was arriving at yesterday with this friend, as we were another woodworker, a boat builder originally, and we were saying you get to the same point.
Yes.
And I was saying, but what I actually find is when there's the invitation for people to slow down, like really slow down and play.
Yes.
Like put a screw in that. That worked. Put a screw in that. That didn't work. The screw snapped. And instead of the screw snapped because I'm bad at putting screws in, what happened? Maybe we drill a hole, put it in. Oh, what if it's a bigger hole? Oh, that worked. And so there's just this, when there's the invitation to be really slow and just have a little play, I notice that after about 10 minutes, they're like, zoom, 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 drill, screw, drill, screw. And the same with the table saw and the circular saw. It's like to just go really slow for a little while.
Yeah.
They just go for it after that. And from that, and I feel like that's the flow state. When something drops and you just go, I don't have to push hard. I don't have to struggle. I don't have to stress about it. Like, actually, if I struggle and stress, that's the thing that's not going to generate this feeling that I want to bring into this space. And I think about the logic and feeling place, because I feel like flow state for me is a really feeling place, but I feel like I get there through these sort of logical processes.
Okay.
Hold this here, move that. You know, there's so much logical information that we're giving people to try and invite them to feel a certain way. And there are lots and lots of steps and procedures that once you add them all up, there's this really nice recipe that's like, that's flow.
Yes.
But once the flow state, when I get there, it's almost like, it's just such a nice concoction, that whole recipe, that's almost like I don't need to pick out what were the different ingredients that got me here. I'm just enjoying the whole flavour.